Ready to go?
At Metro Transit, we are. With more routes to more places, easy ways to pay, and more convenient options, we're ready to go further. Go easier. Go faster. Go, go, go.
And go.
We're ready to go. Are you?
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the next episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. I am your host, Andre Creighton. As always, I'm excited to be with you all today. Today, we are going to talk about how buy now, pay later, and credit cards can derail your financial goals. So, what if I told you that those easy payment plans and swipe now, pay later deals are quietly draining your wallet and your future? Tonight, we dive into the truth behind financial traps of buy now, pay later apps and credit cards. You'll learn how these convenient options are designed to keep you spending, why minimum payments are your enemy, and what you can do to break free. If you've ever said, I'll just pay it later, this episode is your wake up call. So let's hop in. So I'm going to start with just a quick example. And, you know, what if I told you, let's say that let's call the person Jack. So Jack, he goes, he makes a $300 clothing haul using Afterpay, right? So Afterpay is a platform that you would use to basically they front you money, and you get what you want, and then you sign up to pay it in installments over time. Most times interest free, right? So he signs up, he buys $300 worth of clothing through Afterpay, and they tell him, it'll just be four payments of $75, right? And on the onset, it seems manageable, right? Until he does it again with electronics, and then again with Christmas gifts, and fast forward 3 months later, and now he has five active buy now, pay later accounts, right? So and all of them are auto deducting from his checking account. Overdraft fees are followed, and the stress comes next, right? So you know it's really a domino effect, right? Like it sounds good in essence, and I've been guilty of using Afterpay before. Quite frankly, I tend to be a little strategic when I do use it. I try not to layer on multiple Afterpays, but sometimes I want to get the no interest, and be able to pay something over time. So uh, you know it is truly a compounding thing, and this story exposes to you how if we are not conscious about what we're spending our money on and conscious of the realm of how we're paying for things, we truly can set ourselves on a trajectory of what we call the domino effect of getting into debt and not being able to pay off that debt because we overspent. So, the point is these platforms, they make spending feel harmless, but the reality is they can spiral really fast. So we want to be very, very careful. So let's maybe talk a little bit about like in more depth, like what is the buy now, pay later? So it's services like Afterpay, Affirm. Quite frankly, to be honest with you, a couple of years ago, I bought a Peloton treadmill and I used Affirm. Part of it was like I didn't want to just drop the $3,000 right away. I wanted to take advantage of the no interest. So I got a no interest on a firm, and I paid it off during within the term limit. So, but also I knew that like I was making a big investment in buying this Peloton tread, and I didn't after I purchased that through a firm, I didn't go and buy the next another thing on a firm and another thing on a firm because I knew that by stacking that, I'm potentially put myself in a position where I'm liable for the things, multiple things that I've purchased. And oftentimes, a lot of those things are bigger purchases. So, oftentimes it's marketed as no interest if you pay on time. And I think, at the end of the day, it really sounds good. But the reality is that late payment fees average between $7 and $10 per missed installment. Missed payments can affect your credit score. And some providers also do, some do soft checks, some do hard credit checks. So if there's a hard credit check being done, that obviously can drop your score. While it's has minimal effect and it's probably a couple of points, at the end of the day, it still can drop your credit score if they're doing those hard pulls. There's no regulation like traditional lenders. Ultimately, what leads to there being very, very weak consumer protection. So, you know, when utilized correctly, they can be a tool just like anything, right? But any tool that's being overused, uh, potentially can put you in a position where it can be harmful in the long run. So, you know, credit cards at the end of the day are the original buy now, pay later, right? Uh, minimum payment illusion. So you're paying the minimum on $1,000 at 22% interest. That could take you over 8 years to pay that off, right? The compounding interest is literally a silent killer of financial progress. So this is like how buy now, pay later began, and now it's morphed into this new phenomena that a lot of people, fintech investors and VCs have become uh, they've become very familiar, and it's become advantageous for them because they know that the psychology of money is going to turn and bring a large amount of clientele, especially people that are struggling. Some people are using these things for wants, some people are using them for needs, and everything in between, right? So they know that people are in a place where they have to leverage debt in order to survive, right? And they also know that some people are at a place where they feel like they have to keep up with the Joneses, and they're at a place where they will leverage debt to get the things that they want. So they play on those types of people, and what I say is they play on the vulnerable, right? So what we're trying to do here on this podcast is be informed to decrease our vulnerability, right? Everyone has some vulnerability at some point, in various different ways, but how can we continue to decrease our vulnerability and susceptibility to becoming dependent on debt to live our lifestyle? So, um, you know, I think a lot of credit card companies, they try to get you by offering, the reward spending, so, points, cashback, miles, um, and those are great, right? I talk about all the time leveraging credit cards, right? But only if you can pay it in full, right? Because that shows that if I can pay that off every month in full, that shows that I'm spending within my means. I'm not spending without outside my means. I'm likely spending on things that I already would have spent money on. So if you can do that, then yeah, it's great to take advantage of the points, the cashback, the flyer miles, whatever it may be. I actually have a Robinhood credit card where I use that to spend on pretty much everything, everything that I can outside of my mortgage because I can't use it for my mortgage, right? Um, and what that does is that allows me to, I get about $200 to $300 a month in what they call cash back that I can use to buy more stock. So ultimately, it's 300 $200 to $300 of free stock buying things that leveraging debt to buy things that I already would have spent money on with my own money. So just leveraging other people's money and then using my money right away to pay it back in full. Um, you know, I think, obviously credit cards are risky when used for lifestyle inflation. So we just want to be very careful with that. And, at the end of the day, it all comes back to the psychology of spending, right? So, you know, I think we have to think about deferred pain, right? Right. Swiping or clicking, split, you know, splitting those into four feels less painful than seeing $300 leave your account all at once, right? So, I think that we have this mindset that if I pay $300 today, like that hurts. Not seeing down the line that, hey, I split this into four payments. Well, it's going to come out either way, right? Um, and then I think the dopamine loop is what they call it. So shopping equals instant gratification, payment equals delayed consequence, right? So that's what they call the dopamine loop because, when we shop, we're getting that instant gratification. We have the nice kicks, we have the nice car, we have the nice house, right? But what we're not seeing is that delay of the consequence, which is the payment on those items. So maybe if we go and buy the fancy Tesla, right? Instead of maybe what I have, a Mazda CX-9, which is much cheaper, right? Uh, Once that monthly payment kicks in, you start to see that delayed consequence. So we want to try to avoid the dopamine loop as much as possible. FOMO and urgency. Whenever you have FOMO or urgency, I think that is it will ultimately set you up for failure, right? So like the limited time offer, right? Plus the buy now, pay later, which equals an impulse of traps, right? So, they do the limited time offer, you see the promotionals, and then they offer you the buy now, pay later. And then what that does is it traps you and it causes you to make impulsive decisions. So we want to try to avoid these things at all costs. Many apps don't show you the total debt across the platforms. And you may feel like you're managing it at the end of the day until your bank account says otherwise, right? So that's why budget comes into play. That's why training our mind psychologically to have a better relationship with money and continuing to nurture that relationship with money over time is so important in our growth as we think about building wealth and how do we get to a place where we start to create generational wealth for our family, right? So long-term consequences could be credit score impacts. So miss buy now pay later payments. They show up on your credit report. Your debt to income ratio, right? So DTI is huge factor when you're trying to get lending. So if you're trying to buy a home or trying to buy a car, they're going to look at your debt to income ratio and factor that into when you're trying to make some of those bigger purchases. The emotional toll, and I think this is something that's not talked about enough is stress is a killer. Stress is a killer in many ways. It causes high blood pressure, it causes diabetes, it causes all types of health concerns, right? And the more that we don't control our spending, the more that we go down this rabbit hole of struggle, right? And with struggle comes stress, anxiety, financial shame, which creates an emotional toll, and honestly just puts you on an emotional roller coaster, right? And then last thing is lost opportunity. So money tied in interest or payments, or payments could have been growing in investments or savings, right? So that's money that could have been growing in an investment or a savings account, a money market, but it's tied up in you making interest payments or payments, right? So we want to be conscious about that so we can set ourselves up to the best of our ability. So here's a couple of things that you can take back with you to take back control. Audit your habits. So review all your buy now, pay later, and your credit card activity for the last 3 months. I want you to sit down and truly look at them and really, be critical of yourself. Be critical of your habits. Okay. Um, you know, Set aside small amounts weekly for big purchases. So an example would be maybe $25 a week for 3 months, right? Would be $300, which might equal that new TV you want, right? Um, Delay purchases, so 48-hour rule before buying non-essential items. So they always say that if you're going to make a big purchase or it's a non-essential purchase, give it 48 hours. In 48 hours, if you still are having that itch and it's within your wheelhouse where it's not going to set you back, go ahead and make that purchase, right? But let's not make impulsive decisions. Credit card strategy, use for recurring bills you would have paid anyway. So auto put those on auto pay in full to build the credit, and then pay them off before that the reporting period or the statement closes, so you avoid the interest. Um, I mentioned on past podcasts that there's plenty of different apps that you can use to help you with your budgeting. And then the last one is like obviously your emergency fund. And I talk about this, you've probably heard it on many, many episodes, but I talk about these things often because I know that we're getting new people listening every week. I know that we have some people that leave and come back. We have some people that maybe were listening, but they weren't, like they just need to hear it over and over again before it becomes the habit. That's why we continue to talk about these things over and over again. So the call to action is take 10 minutes to open your credit card app. Look at your accounts, write down your balances, encourage yourself for a spending detox. 30 days no credit card or buy now pay later use, right? Start small, start somewhere. And with that, I think it's just really trying to train ourselves psychologically to think better and to have a better relationship with money. So with that said, I always say this, it's not about how much money you make, the power is in how much money you keep. I am your host, Andre Creighton. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of the Financially Fit Podcast. Thank you so much.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
Nystrom is a manufacturer of specialty building products. We've been partners with Bremer for over 20 years. Through our relationship with Bremer, we've actually doubled in size over the last 10 years. We've been able to secure a working capital line of credit, equipment financing, real estate financing, and take advantage of their treasury management solutions. It's really been an invaluable partnership to have Bremer behind us and support us.
To keep my home running smooth, I count on Xfinity Internet. With 99.9% reliability, we're all online at once. No slowdowns. The Xfinity app lets me manage our Wi-Fi and keep things secure. Xfinity makes it easy.